is my baby.
I'm Dana Denha.
And I'm Jill Andrews, filling in for Melissa Bondi, and this is Adventures in Parenthood. Throughout this series, we will explore the world of raising kids from newborn through adulthood.
In this episode, we're going to learn the rules of the road when you're riding on two wheels, how to keep your kids protected while riding their bikes, and the right gear to keep their rides safe and enjoyable. Well, it's interesting because as a kid, I was actually I was a little bit younger than the rest of the kids in the neighborhood at the time, and they were all riding two-wheelers, and I had my training wheels. I was like 4 years old, and my mom forced me to learn how to ride a two-wheeler because she's like, all the other kids are doing it, you have to be able to ride a two-wheeler. And I remember being absolutely terrified and falling and crying, but we pulled it off, we did it, but it was absolutely awful, and I don't think I would ever do that myself to my own child.
I agree. I think like back then that it was a little bit more free. I remember I had a very similar experience because I used to hang out with boys. So the boys would be riding their bikes around and they'd be whipping around without their training wheels, and I thought I was good enough to take my training wheels off, and the first time I went down my driveway, I went off the side and into the drainage ditch.
So you thought you were a real hot shot, but you really weren't.
No, I definitely, I picked it up pretty quick, but I remember helmets not being like that big of a deal, and the kids who actually wore helmets were almost teased for wearing them.
I felt like the kids that wore helmets back then in the 80s were like nerds.
Yeah.
Basically at the time.
Yep, and nowadays I feel like it's almost a necessity. I wouldn't put my kid on a bike and send him down the driveway without a helmet.
Honestly, I haven't been on a bike in like a decade or more, but I don't think if I got on a bike right now, I'd be doing anything that crazy other than like riding around my court. So I don't have a helmet, but I don't think I would let my daughter on a two-wheeler or even training wheels without a helmet at this point because every other kid has them. There was obviously like a shift at some point, and it went from like those overprotective parents forcing their kids to wear helmets and they probably hated every second of it to it just becoming the norm.
Normal.
And it's weird to see a child not wearing a helmet.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of parents are almost uneasy about seeing kids riding around, even on their own property, without a helmet because it is so unsafe.
The thing that I think scares me a little bit is because I do live on a court, all the kids are riding their bikes in the street all the time. It's not like they're in a bike lane or anything. They're just like riding freely in the street. And it just scares me because I'm like, what about that one time when you can't see that kid riding around in the street and they're not paying attention and you just can't see them because they're little?
Yep.
So that's what, and I guess when we start talking to Doug later, he'll let us know about like the rules of riding in the street because obviously Ann Arbor is really heavy into their bike lanes and riding on the street. So why don't you tell us about who our guest is today?
So joining us is Doug Martelle, Senior Officer with the Ann Arbor PD, and here to tell us about the ins and the outs of bike safety.
Welcome to the show, Doug.
Thanks for having me.
So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, because you're really passionate about biking and bike safety.
I am. I've been an avid bicyclist since I started biking when I was two-wheeling when I was about 5 years old.
Yeah.
Having a similar experience. Dad lets go of the bike. I grew up in Ypsilanti, so I'm on the sidewalk, and there's an alley and a big hedge, and I ended up in the hedge. So it was kind of a soft but scratchy landing.
Sure.
But no helmet at that. This was.
They probably didn't even have them then, right?
They did not. They did not. And I've been cycling ever since. It's really been my passion. I brought my police bike today, so I ride at work. I've been a police mountain bikeless since, 98 here in Ann Arbor. And then at my previous department, I was one of the bicyclists there, too.
So when you were getting into just the police force in general, was that always something you wanted to do?
Yes, when it became an option, I was like, yeah, let's do this. I want to get paid and ride a bike.
Yeah.
And, I can pinch myself and say, is this really they're paying me to ride a bike? So it's been really just a lifelong passion of mine is riding.
That's amazing. So you actually go out and you kind of teach parents and kids how to be safe on their bikes?
Yes, I'm actually one of the police mountain bike instructors for the police department. So when officers want to ride, decide they want to become a police mountain bicyclist, we have 3 officers that are trained to train them on all the little idiosyncrasies and things they need to know on how to ride these safely, and some of the tactical things we teach. But also a big portion of Safety Town that I'm involved in every summer is we have a bike safety portion of that, and I'm the one that does the bike safety portion of that for the kids.
Okay.
So
And that's really important for kids to actually learn how to be confident and safe on a bike. So can you talk a little bit about what you guys go through in the Safety Town?
Yes. What we do is, the kids come in as a classroom, and I have my police bike there. And last year, because I tend sometimes to be a little silly with the kids, because I think they tend to appreciate that,
Sure.
even though sometimes they don't think a police officer should be really silly, is I brought one of my son's old bikes that we still have around. It's like this big. I mean, it's got tires on it like this big around. And so we talk about what you do pre-ride. What should you do? And I'm talking to them in their terms. And the thing is, the first thing we talk about is what you wear. And I stress with them that they should wear bright clothing. And that's usually pretty budget friendly as far as a safety piece of safety equipment, if you want to call it that. It's just a nice bright shirt, and make sure that you don't have floppy pants so they don't get caught in the chain. Those kind of things. And the other big thing I stress with the kids, and this sometimes goes over the head, is the type of shoes they wear. And I say, I tell them, cover only the toes you wish to keep, because if you wear sandals or flip-flops when you ride your bike and your foot slips off the pedal and scrapes on the cement, guess what? It's going to be ugly.
Stub toe is not a nice thing.
Yeah, scrape toe, and I've seen it with people. So wear something that is covering your toes. And then we go on to helmet fitting and bike size, which is usually I usually gear that toward the parents more, because they're the ones that have the control about what bike size the kids get. Because in a perfect world, as your child grows, you'll get a bike that's
but you also don't want to have to buy a bike every year.
Right, and bikes aren't cheap, so sometimes parents make the error. And I get it; it's budget driven to buy a bike that's too big. And I stress especially when I talk with the parents, it's better for the kids to have a bike that's a little bit too small than it is for them to have a bike too big, because a lot of the fun that goes along with riding a bike is confidence. And if you're not confident in it because the bike's too big and you feel like you're going to tip over, then it's going to take the fun out of it, and they're going to be scared to ride the bike.
It's not easy. I remember as a kid, my brother's 6'5", and he had a huge bike, and I would try to get on it, and I would for a little bit, but it was just hard to even just get going on a bike that's so much larger than you.
Right, and you can't touch the ground because the top tube here is so high.
You
that
have to do a one kick.
Yeah, and it's like no, and you imagine a little person whose skills aren't great, and then you introduce this bike that's too big, and they're just way out of their element. It just takes the fun out of it, and it's not safe.
You did mention wearing bright colors, like neon colors and stuff like that. So I think that's a thing I don't see a lot of kids doing. You do see the helmets more often, but I don't see a lot of kids wearing neon colors, because I think it's more like they're riding every day, so it's do I have neon colors? Right. So do you have a solution to that? Maybe buy a bright colored jacket?
Yeah, jacket. I mean, if they're riding in cool weather, they can throw, if they've got a bright jacket, you can buy nice lightweight those safety vests.
Oh yeah,
the real light neon yellow, safety yellow vests.
I see a lot of people doing that actually, adults too.
They can just throw on whatever they're wearing. So, and those are those are pretty budget friendly. It doesn't cost a lot of money to throw one of those on.
So
you think of the benefit.
How do you fit a kid for a bike? Does it go on their height or weight? What is it based by?
Well, a lot of it depends on where you're buying the bike, what options are going to be there for you. Obviously, if you go to a department store, there's going to be typically fewer options as far as size. If you go to a local bike shop, you're going to get a person that's a trained bicycle mechanic. They know about bikes. They can help you choose a frame size. Frame size is the first thing. They should be able to stand over the bike, feet flat on the ground, and not have this top bar here touching their body. Okay, and so that's the first step. And then once you get over that hurdle, then there's some things with seat height and how to adjust the seat height. But that's, you know, that you have to have the child there. You can't. It's a lot of adults will go and buy a bike and bring it home, and for a gift or whatever. Yeah. And they bring it home and they just, okay, this is going to fit. It's all going to be good, and the bike might be too big or might be too small.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when it's that first bike, it's more about like maybe it's a character they like or a theme or something along those lines.
Yeah, that Spider-Man bike or that Iron Man bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for maybe like not buying the cheapest bike, or does it matter?
Well, that goes into budget, and I'm the kind of person where when if you have somebody that's riding a lot and you have a young person that's very enthusiastic about it, a broken bike does nothing for them. And department store bikes have they can be very durable and heavy, but the adjustability of them, especially if you're buying a bike that has gears and handbrakes, there's a lot of adjustment that needs to go on. And the department store bikes are typically not made well enough to be able to adjust and keep working very well. But as a recommendation, if it's like a first bike, I suppose maybe a department store bike might be okay. Then as the young one grows, I mean, if you're buying a little tiny bike like this.
Yeah, I mean, you figure you're only going to have that bike for
and it's got a coaster brake on it where you just, you're just pedaling backwards a little bit to stop the bike. There's really very little to go wrong with those.
Yeah.
And then if their enthusiasm grows for biking and as they grow and their enthusiasm grows, it might make sense to look at something that's going to be a little bit more expensive, but
stand the test of time.
Stand the test of time, have adjustability, and be more of a joy to ride.
So what about reflectives? How do you go about making sure you have the right reflective gear so you're seen?
Well, you can get that stuff just about everywhere. The reflective vests we talked about. There's a law that says no bike should be sold without reflectors on the pedals, front and rear reflector, and reflectors in the spokes. So if you're buying a bike from a store, by law, it's supposed to have those before it leaves the store.
Okay.
So as far as the stuff on the bike itself, that has to be there. But there's all sorts of things that you can buy to wear. I've seen people with bracelets, things on their legs that as they go up and down, they're lit. So you've got this. I mean, it's like a smorgasbord of stuff.
What
out
about
there
those? Aren't there the lights that when you pedal, it generates a light on the front of the bike?
Yeah, I don't know if they even still make those anymore,
Okay.
but I remember having one on my Schwinn 3-speed
Okay.
many moons ago. It rubs against the side of the tire, you clamp it on, and then you've got a tail light and a headlight. Yeah, they slowed you down though.
Oh yeah, it was
they
hard.
slowed you down
it was
a lot.
Hard.
Yeah. But now with these high intensity LED lights, they don't burn through batteries really fast. They're really bright, and they're small and light. So if, people that are weight conscious, or and you can take them on and off. So if you're parking your bike downtown, you don't have to worry too much about somebody stealing them. So yeah, those are great options.
Well, I know personally, like driving at night, if someone doesn't have like the right reflective gear on, it is hard to see someone on a bike at night. It just is.
It is. And
we're not talking just about kids. We're talking about adults, because we obviously live in an area where a lot of people ride their bikes.
Right. Absolutely. And that can really make a huge difference. And by law, you have to have a headlight on if you're riding a half hour past sunset or a half hour before sunrise. You have to have a headlight, and you have to have at least a reflector on the back. And of course, most people take it beyond that, and they have the flashing beacon, red beacon on the back, which can be a lifesaver, literally.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more on bike safety. We're back with Officer Doug Martelle. Welcome back to the show.
I'm glad to be back.
So we talked a little bit about bike safety before we went on our break. So maybe you could fill us in on helmets and getting the right fit helmet for each individual.
Absolutely. I actually brought my helmet if you, because I'm visual, so I think it helps folks to understand how these things work. And I will say that even the best trained bicyclists will sometimes have a problem adjusting these things because it can be kind of labor intensive.
Yeah.
And you know what, frustrating for parents sometimes. It really is. But the main thing is that there's obviously different sizes. If you want to call this a shell, there's different size shells. So as you know, they've got toddler shells, they've got youth shells, and they've got adult shells. And then the adult shells typically will come in 3 different sizes, small, medium, large. Some of them are interchangeable because they have these removable pads that are different thicknesses, so you can actually kind of change the size of the helmet by changing the thickness of the pads to custom fit it to the child's head. So as a general rule, you want it on the person's head, and if you look, there's when I buckle it, the letter V is formed right here by my ear. So one strap in the rear, one strap in the front, and you're just forming that letter V. Okay, that's usually the tricky part, is getting these, because this is the adjustment. This is the adjustment buckle here.
Okay.
Is getting this back, and this strap here will adjust so that if this strap is too short, then the helmet's going to be up here, and we don't want it like that. We want it down, right along, just above your eyebrows. Some say an inch. When I'm teaching kids, the easiest thing, what's an inch to them, right?
Yeah.
So if you can look up just using your eyes and see the bottom of your helmet, then you're okay. All right. And then a lot of the helmets come with this cam lock in the back, so there shouldn't be movement. You should be able to kind of go like this and do that little movement with your eyes. That tells you that your helmet's tight enough. And then when you have your chin strap proper and you open your mouth all the way, your helmet should come kind of hug your head. I call it hug your head. It should hug your head just a little bit. It should come down on your head just a little bit. Not so much where it's choking you out, but you want it snug.
You need a little bit of room just to move your mouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
And really, those are the general rules for helmet fit. The hardest part is the straps, getting the straps right. And a lot of times out of the box, they're pretty close. It just depends on the helmet. Just about every helmet you buy now is approved for use on. You don't want to necessarily have a helmet that's got it's like a motorcycle helmet. Buy a bike helmet.
Yeah.
The first helmet that I used when I was 15 was the very first helmet that Bell made for bicycling, and it looked like a soldier's helmet from World War II, except it was shaped like that, but it was made from real hard plastic, and then it had a styrofoam inside, and it was heavy, and it had about 6 little vents in it. All right, now this has, I don't know, probably 24 vents in it.
Yeah.
So I was that, the one that the kids probably teased about wearing the helmet, but if I wanted to ride my bike, I had to wear my helmet, and that was the trade-off.
So how do you get kids in the routine of doing that if there's such a sort of a stigma around being the one kid that has a helmet?
Well, one of the things I talk about when I talk with the kids about it is you think about a helmet and you think, oh, bike helmet, but if you think about other people that wear helmets that are cool, like Iron Man wears a helmet, okay? Anytime you're watching a football game, no football player goes on the field to play without a helmet on. Lacrosse wears helmet. When you're up to bat, when you're playing baseball, you're wearing a batting helmet. So if you think about even the best bicyclists in the world, the bicyclists that are doing all the tricks, they're wearing a helmet. The professional road riders they're all wearing helmets when you have some activity like that. The skateboarders are wearing helmets. So if you equate it to that, then I think they kind of get that idea it's not so bad. Because they may not, you could say, well, you could fall and hit your head and injure your brain. Well, what does that mean to a person that's going into kindergarten? Well, probably not too much. But if you equate it to the things that are kind of cool. Plus, it's really, the rarity to see people not wearing helmets now. It's just kind of flipped.
Yeah, it totally has, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's great, yeah.
Well, we talk a little bit about bike lanes, but so are there rules in Ann Arbor that you shouldn't be riding on the sidewalks when there is a bike lane, or maybe when kids should get in the bike lanes? Because I feel like that's also like a parent-kid comfort level.
Absolutely, it is. It's when you have, it's really a parental control thing. You know, when I'm talking to young people that are kindergarten, first, second, third grade, sidewalks are going to be where they should be. You know, and then we talk about the hazards of what can come up on a sidewalk. You know, people backing out of the driveway is the big thing. So their awareness level has to be way up. You can't be, you know, head in the clouds when you're riding your bike. You need to pay attention.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing really that says at this certain age it's okay for them to ride. I've seen, you know, 10-year-olds riding in the bike lane, but you know they've got helmet, they got bright clothes. You can tell that they're avid bicyclists. So there's nothing that says legally when they should go or when they shouldn't go. The bike lanes are provided for people to ride in, and when they're there, they expect you to ride in them. But there's nothing that says you have to. Especially, well, you've seen the roads and the debris that tends to go to the side of the road. That's where the bike lanes are.
So is there a rule that says you can't ride on the sidewalk?
There is no rule that says you can't ride on the sidewalk. But along with that, you have to yield to pedestrians. So if you're riding a bike, you have to yield to the pedestrians. Down on State Street, they have no bicycle riding signs, but that's just a courtesy that they put up.
No one's enforcing
hoping that people, because there's no enforcement behind it. But because the sidewalks are narrow there and there's a lot of people walking, a lot of businesses, people walking in and out of businesses, they just were hoping that putting those signs up would discourage people from riding their bike on the sidewalks.
Are there advantages to using the bike lane, do you feel, safety-wise?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, from an adult standpoint, it tends to give you that buffer in that area to ride in that is, you know, kind of yours. And as long as you're riding following all the other rules of the road, riding with traffic, not against traffic, then you have better visibility. People that are coming in and out of private drives and their own driveway or in and out of shopping centers are looking at the street.
Yeah.
More so than they probably are the sidewalk. So there's a visibility factor there too, that you could be more visible so that people can see you.
Do you find with the introduction of backup cameras that's helped in any way with the safety of biking?
I don't know if there's anything, you know, I can't say,
Yeah.
you know, pick out an instance and say, yeah, this is.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I can't help but think that's helped on a lot of different levels for backing safety on vehicles, yeah.
So what's a common issue that you come across as a police officer relating to bike safety?
People not following the rules of the road. I mean, if I had to pick one thing about bicyclists and their behavior, is that, you know, they run stop signs, they run stop lights, they ride their bikes the wrong way in a one-way street. So just the general, and I don't know how much of it is they don't know that they're supposed to, or whether they're just like, I'm on a bike and it really doesn't matter. But you know, I've had the chance to talk with bicycle advocates, and they say, you know what, we'd love to see more enforcement of the rules on bicyclists when, you know, writing them stop sign tickets, writing them running red lights. You know, they'll stop for the red light, look both ways and go through the red light. Well, if you're driving a car, would that be acceptable? Absolutely not.
No, and I have to
it's not on a
say,
bike.
it's not all the time that I get sort of like worried about when a bicyclist doesn't stop at a stop sign, but when there's a bunch of cars around and they're not stopping, then you're basically asking for it.
Right. Yeah, and it's, you know, and for me, yeah, there's the legal issue, but the biggest issue for me is the safety
issue. Nobody wants to
issue.
hit a bicyclist.
Yeah, it's the safety
where
issue.
That's my
It's the safety
issue with it.
I mean, yeah, I could stop them and write them a ticket, but it's the safety issue. It's like, you just ran through a stop sign, and if this person's not paying attention or whatever, you're going to be on a losing end of that. No doubt.
We only got about a minute left, but if you wanted to give any additional tips before we head out.
Well, for parents, I urge you to ride with your kids. You know, spend the time, wear a helmet with your kids so that because they're looking at you to model the behavior. And so I know my wife, she struggled with this, and of course I'm so happy I won, because she didn't want to wear a helmet when she rode with our kids. And so I said, you know, they're going to think it's okay not to wear it if you don't. So wear a helmet with your kids. Go to the store, pick them out. They make them really cool now. They're not, you know, that funky.
Yeah, they have like those mohawk ones.
They're not that funky helmet that I wore when I was 15. So they're so cool now, and just have fun, because I stress with folks that it can be safe and fun at the same time. You don't have to get really so caught up in the safety thing that it takes the fun away, because the safety part is really quite easy when it all boils down.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Doug.
Thanks for having me.
If you have an idea for a parenting show or guest, talk to us on Twitter and Facebook, CTN Ann Arbor.
For more on programming and services available at CTN, visit a2gov.org/watchctn. Thanks for joining us on this adventure in parenthood.